The arrival scene in London's business district was supposed to be another carefully polished moment in the royal calendar, but instead it unfolded into something critics are calling one of the most awkwardly silent public appearances she has had in recent memory. When Kate stepped out of the car, what followed was not excitement or anticipation, not even polite interest, but a stunning level of indifference that hung in the air like a fog. There were no waving crowds, no eager schoolchildren lined up with flags, no enthusiastic supporters waiting to snap photos. In fact, there were no flags at all, no crowd barrier, no security-managed fan zone, no atmosphere that suggested a notable figure had arrived. It was simply quiet. A kind of quiet that is impossible to spin into anything positive. A quiet that amplifies every step, every movement, every uncomfortable glance between her team and the press, trying to salvage something meaningful from the moment. By the way, the event and location were announced days in advance. The photographers and police outnumber the public. People walked right by her with the casualness they reserve for any other stranger navigating the sidewalk. Some glanced in her direction for a split second, only to look away just as quickly. Many didn't even bother to turn their heads. It wasn't rude. It was worse than rude. It was dismissive. A sign that no one felt compelled to interrupt their day, not even for a second, to acknowledge her presence. This is the business district, after all. The rhythm here is fast, purposeful, and unbothered. But even in such a place, a royal arrival typically brings at least a tiny ripple of interest. Yet today, there was none. The absence of reaction was the reaction. Critics online have seized on the footage, pointing out the stark contrast between the royal PR narrative and the reality on display. They say the carefully manufactured image of her as a beloved figure is cracking under the weight of moments like these, moments where the public doesn't play along with the script. On social media, the words cold reception have been repeated again and again. Some describe it as a ghost arrival, others as embarrassingly empty, and a few went as far as calling it a PR illusion dissolving in real time. And in many ways, this moment captured exactly that. The collapse of an illusion. The silence that greeted her wasn't a momentary lapse. It stretched on as she walked toward the building, her heels tapping against the pavement with no applause or cheering to drown them out. Every step echoed the same message: no one is impressed. The few people who did slow down didn't do it out of admiration. They needed a moment to understand why photographers were pointing their lenses toward an otherwise unremarkable doorway. And once the recognition set in, their reactions were astonishing in their neutrality. No smiles, no nods, no signs of respect or interest. Just a return to whatever task they were focused on before she appeared. This is the type of moment that the palace usually tries to hide. Unexpected indifference is a nightmare for an institution built on perception. Yet cameras caught every second of it. Kate walked with a fixed expression that tried to project confidence, but the surrounding emptiness worked against her. It didn't matter how well tailored the outfit was, or how carefully rehearsed the entrance timing had been. The environment swallowed it whole. A royal arrival with no royal atmosphere. A moment stripped of all the glamour and grandeur attached to the title. Observers who were physically present have described the scene as bland and anticlimactic. One witness said she blended into the street like another corporate executive, completely overshadowed by the flow of workers, delivery riders, and tourists who were more captivated by their phone screens and schedules than by her entrance. Another said if it weren't for the cameras, they wouldn't have realized anything unusual was happening at all. The photographers themselves seemed to be working overtime, shifting angles, adjusting lenses, trying to capture something, anything, that could later be presented as impressive. But no amount of creative framing could disguise the reality. She arrived in an atmosphere devoid of interest. For an institution that relies heavily on public engagement to maintain relevance, moments like these are especially revealing. When a royal steps into a room or onto a street, the expectation, at least from their PR teams, is that the presence alone should generate attention. Yet the lack of reaction at this event demonstrated that the automatic awe factor simply isn't there. Not anymore. Or at least not today. Instead of drawing focus, she became part of the background, overshadowed by the normal rhythms of city life. Her presence didn't command attention. It barely earned a glance. This wasn't the first time her reception has felt noticeably muted, but it may be one of the clearest examples of that shift. Over the past several months, critics have remarked on the diminishing enthusiasm at her engagements, pointing to smaller crowds, quieter arrivals, and moments where the usual royal sparkle seems absent. Whether this reflects a change in public interest, a shift in generational attitudes, or simply the unavoidable fatigue surrounding the monarchy, it's hard to deny that these cold receptions are becoming more visible and more frequent. The Future World Summit was meant to be an opportunity for her to appear confident, engaged, and relevant, but the reception, or lack of one, undermined the very purpose of the appearance. As she entered the building, there was no final burst of applause, no last-minute wave from the crowd, no sound rising behind her. Just the door closing quietly, sealing off an entrance that left no impression whatsoever. Critics online commented on how symbolic that moment felt. A door closing on a public appearance that failed to connect with the public at all. Even once inside the venue, there was a sense, and commentators have been quick to note this, that the energy didn't magically improve. The atmosphere remained reserved, muted, almost disinterested. The contrast between expectation and reality was impossible to ignore, and every online discussion about the event returns to the same point. The public simply didn't care. No matter how many photos are released afterward, no matter how glowing the official write-up might attempt to be, the footage speaks for itself. The silence speaks for itself. The indifference speaks for itself. And perhaps the most brutal commentary comes from people comparing this entrance to how it would have played out if Meghan Sussex had been the one arriving instead. Online discussions have been emphatic. The difference would be night and day. Meghan's public appearances tend to ignite immediate excitement. People cheer, phones go up instantly, crowds form even before she reaches the doorway, and the atmosphere shifts with an undeniable spark. Her presence naturally draws attention, admiration, and noise. Critics argue that Meghan brings an energy that feels organic, electric, and completely unforced. They say she has a magnetism that pulls people in, making even ordinary rooms feel alive the moment she enters. In the minds of many viewers, where Kate faced silence, Meghan would have triggered a wave of cheering. Where Kate's entrance was marked by indifference, Meghan's would have been met with applause and raised voices calling her name. Where Kate blended quietly into the flow of ordinary city life, Meghan would have stood out instantly, generating excitement that spread through the crowd like a spark catching fire. The comparison, though harsh, has dominated online discussions in the aftermath of the event. Many people argued that if Meghan had arrived instead, the business district would not have stayed silent. They believe it would have erupted, people stopping, smiling, calling out, pulling out their phones, and creating an atmosphere filled with energy rather than emptiness. And that final contrast sums up the public reaction perfectly. Kate walked into the Future World Summit, surrounded by silence, while Meghan Sussex, had she been the one arriving, would have brought the cheers, the excitement, and the genuine enthusiasm that today's moment so painfully lacked.